I fixed the bug and gremlin in the system. I'm just gonna double check on Facebook onto the screen, make sure it's actually live again. Still not used to using this OBS. It's all very new to me. As the new stream come up. No, there is a delay, but it seems to be live. Although my viewer count is stalled from the last live. It's saying there's 11 on Facebook, 1 on YouTube, 1 on Twitch, but currently saying there's no viewers in general. Gotta love the way this stuff works. Yo, how you doing, Ivanhoe? Just trying to check that we are live on the right platforms. Because for some reason I am not getting notifications either. I'm in a real nightmare with Facebook at the minute and trying to learn all of these new bits of hardware as well as yeah, quite tasking to say the least. I have no notifications. This is very frustrating. There we go. Right, seems to have actually gone live on all platforms. How you doing, folks? It's just been one of those goddamn days. Happy Thursday. I hope you're having a fun week. Oh, I love this technology. I'm glad you can hear me, Phil. Welcome, brother. Welcome. How you doing, Chris? I'm not gonna wear the headphones this evening, so every time I get a new like or share of the stream and you see the little graphic in the corner, the ding isn't gonna just violate my brain. I do appreciate the likes, the shares, and the follows, etc. But that noise is hella annoying, and I still haven't figured out how to turn it down from last week. Evening, Chris. Glad you can hear me well. How are you doing, Gary? Hope you are keeping well, brother. I need to figure out how to put that on a multi-stream so I can read all the comments. Well, that's weird. Why is the rest of the comments not coming through? Oh, here we go. It's just a bit time delayed. How are you doing, Gary? Really enjoyed recording a podcast with you the other day. For everyone that doesn't know, Gary Yudes managed to give me a couple of hours of his time on Monday, and we sat down with me, him, and Maka and recorded episode 25, I think, 24, 25 of the Simpa Life podcast. So that'll be out from Monday. It should be up from Patreons, so if you are one of our exclusive patrons, you can get early access to it from tomorrow. So do check that out, and if you would like to become a patron, check it out at patreon.com/the Simpa Life. Yeah, welcome. This is a whole new thing. I'm trying to get back to those easy, ranty, just kind of fun lives that I used to do. Probably 2019 now, if you think of how much time we've lost to COVID. But I just miss doing kind of long-winded rants, chatting shit, and just having that back and forth and that rapport. I do love the podcast and I do love interviewing with the guests, but it can become quite I don't know, sort of overly controlled, because there's certain subjects I want to cover, there's certain topics, certain questions I want answered. Obviously each guest wants to try and get a certain narrative or a certain worldview and opinion across, and we obviously want to create that space, but I also just like having the direct engagement with you guys. So these Thursday lives are predominantly going to be just me chatting shit with you lot. So if you have any questions, queries, anything and everything, as weird and as wonderful as you like, because that's what I want this hour to be, just connecting with the people, having that chat. I spend far too much of my life being overly serious and reading very specific and nuanced text and research and various things. So to be able to just chat and have, kick the shit is definitely not the expression. You probably shouldn't kick shit. How you doing, Steve? Hope you're keeping well. Big up, Kev. Yeah, I have no idea what happened. Absolutely no idea what happened on the stream earlier. Thank you for liking the stream, Kieran. Big up our one Twitch viewer this evening. How are you doing? It's good to see we're getting a good balance. I do like sitting and watching and seeing how many people are watching from various platforms. I was trying to rip open this bag with the Mylar on it. It's a wee bit tough. One of the things I'm going to be doing during these Thursday lives is sort of product reviews, trying different things and enjoying various sort of cultivars and products that are being produced by the UK market. So one of which I've got at the minute, the wonderful people at Creative Canna. They sent me loads of stuff, but unfortunately, me being dietary awkward and being vegan meant that all the other things that they sent, like the gummies, the brownies, and the cakes, I can't eat. Whereas these, ironically, they're called honeycomb, but contain no honey, so therefore they are vegan friendly. They got 200 milligrams of BHO in them, and they're pretty damn good. They're very, very sugary, so not so much medical as they are just treat and fun. This bag is well sealed, I'll give you that. I will give you that. Still kind of getting to it. It's the sticker on the cover of it. Well done, guys. This is very well packaged. You're not going to get caught out with this. Sweet. Ooh. That looks tasty. You can see that with the light on the background. Oh my god. That is delightful. Doesn't taste really weedy. I suppose it's a good thing, really. That is delightful. Creative Canna. If you know Creative Canna, check them out. Been around in the scene for quite a long time. Make amazing edibles. But need to do more vegan stuff, guys. Everybody just needs to do more vegan stuff, to be fair. Evening, it's Stonzy. How you doing? Got some lovely local weed to enjoy this evening. I have no idea what the hell it is because I neglected to ask, which was a bit stupid. But big heavy buds. It's keeping me happy, so good evening smoke. Ooh, Phil, you're a diamond. You're an absolute diamond. I do love vegan gummies. They're a very different sort of texture, but I think it's because obviously it's the gelatin and it makes it just endlessly chewy for your sort of traditional sweet you think that you'd get from the corner shop as a kid. Whereas a lot of the vegan gummy sweets can be quite, really quite a range in textures and flavors that come with them. Ooh, added turmeric and what the hell's spirulina? Oh, spirulina is that stuff that tastes like alcohol, isn't it? What is spirulina, Phil? Educate me on spirulina. Coming through quiet. Let's see what we can do to boost the sound. So we up it there. I'm still trying to learn this OBS thing, this new software. Normally Mr. Macca is in charge of all of the technicalities and keeps things running day to day. Is that a bit better with the audio levels, or are we now too loud? Spirulina, it's a sweetener. Ah, thank you, Ben. Thank you. Always educating me, brother. Good to know. What am I thinking of then? That it's usually blue when it's in drinks. Begins with an S. Smells like alcohol. The hell am I thinking of? No, it escapes me. It completely escapes me. No, I can't even think of how to Google it. This is the thing of having my other screen was so that I could Google shit, and I just do not know. That's weird. I don't know if you guys can see that on your screen. For some reason, the comments just decided to double and replicate themselves. Very confusing. Very fucking confusing. Anyway, so some of the subjects I wanted to be covering in this is we're going to try and kind of do like a verbal roundup of everything that's gone down in the week. So talk about some of the topics that I cover in the Last Week in Weed blog series that I've been releasing on the simpalife.com. Talking about other projects I'll be working on. Thank you for following NellXL1, I think that says. Can't see the I get too distracted by the zombie running. Macca set it up for, he's like, set up a basic for this. And here you go, this is all you need to go live. And every time I get deafened by the sound and mesmerized by the zombie running across the screen. But yeah, I wanted to do sort of cover the Last Week in Weed topics. So we would cover various news, talk about things within the community, anything of any great interest really. Obviously it's still going to be a cannabis based live as these things always are. But as with the rest of the Simpa Life, I'm trying to incorporate anything, any other subject matter, anything that's as unique and as diverse and as weird and wonderful as you want, because that's what life is. That's the diversity of life, and I want to show the cannabis community in all its wonderful weirdness. And that's the main thing of creating the Simpa Life, is to create a platform for voices, for people to be heard and to connect, to have that engagement. That's just what I started with Durham City Cannabis Club. That's what we've always sought to do with whenever we've put on an event. and that's all I've ever sought to do with my work is to unify people. I've written call to arms letters in most of my blogs that typically end with some gusto of me going rallying the troops together at some sort of Braveheartian call to arms cry, battle cry. You know what I mean? What's a cyanobacteria? Spirulina is algae. Algae's good shit. What did I find out the other day? Isn't algae responsible for like 60% of the world's oxygen? Which is fucking crazy when you think about it. I was watching Seaspiracy. If you haven't already checked out Seaspiracy on Netflix, it is well worth a fucking watch. I'd obviously been vegan for a long time anyway. Never really enjoyed fish. There's always something I never really liked it, even when I consumed meat. But then to watch something like that and see the true scale of it, and to actually look at the numbers and look at the knock-on effect that mass fishing has on everything environmentally and economically, you start to get an idea of kind of how fucked we are as a species. Other things that we'll be doing on this is probably going to be doing guest slots, with it being an hour long. I was kind of looking to introduce this as kind of almost like talk showy sort of style, so I wanted to create space for short burst guests to come on, spaces for 10-15 minutes, anyone that's got sort of a relevant or pressing story, correspondence style. So this is something I'll be looking to develop over the coming weeks in communication with a few other people. I'm trying to do some cross branding at the minute as well, to draw in some personal extra income to allow myself to live a little bit better, because things are a bit hard at the minute with the loss of events and everything from last year. It just meant that typically what I was doing to survive wasn't there anymore. Hopefully we're looking to obviously get events back this year. I mean, you've got the Too Loud event taking place just before 420. You've got a couple of people setting up 420 events. And then there's a lot of people looking for that post-June 21st date as to when then events are going to kick off around the UK again. I mean, the big expos are all taking tickets now. Product Earth, Paradise Gardens. There isn't a Hemp and CBD Expo on the cards this year, which is a shame, as they were actually, I thought, making quite good strides by having more of the so-called recreational community and by representing more of the people from the diverse culture and in industry, rather than just the people set to profit from it. He said no more fish by 2048 is bollocks. Well, I don't know, the bollock fish might be hunted to extinction by then, so yeah. No, wait, again, that's based on, it's in the same way that if you had, say, a smart meter in your house, if you then turned on your washing machine, you turned on every fucking light, the days left that it would calculate that the amount of money you've got in it would reduce drastically. Or say if I get trigger happy with my car on the motorway and my estimated fuel will lose me about 100 goddamn miles, I calm it down for 5 minutes and then the estimation calculates back down to something much more reasonable. It's just based on the same goddamn thing, that if we sustained at the current rate without some other intervention, then that is where the data models project us going towards. And I think that the idea of, say, how the UK have weaponized the idea of nationalism around fisheries as an anti-EU rhetoric is quite fucking dangerous. I mean, it's the same as we've said with anything, that if you move away from food, if you move to anything that's finite, if you then put that neoliberalistic capital agenda onto it of quarterly growth or else it's failure, in a finite system, that's only ever going to fail. And we're seeing that time and time again. You cannot continue to have anything even close to sustainable if it's in a deficit. And that's, I think, what that program was trying to highlight more than fucking anything, is we are taking far more than we're allowing to replenish. And I think the effect on that, as they were saying, is astronomical, because then if it breaks down to the point of then we lose the algae, we all fucked, because we asphyxiate. I was gonna say we air drown there. I will full disclosure, I had a little bit of a shot glass with some lemon tech before I started this, just to kind of cheer me up a bit. So some of the content of this live might be quite interesting. I'm trying to get paid for what I do, Chris. I'm trying. It's difficult. I mean, I'm in conversation with some cross branding at the minute to do quite a few guest blog spots on other websites at the minute. So there's going to be announcing a few of them in the next sort of couple of weeks, which I'm really looking forward to, because it's a way to kind of diversify audience and to be able to get some of the content that I produce towards an audience that usually wouldn't have access to it, or ordinarily would be maybe dissuaded or even, I suppose, turned off by it in a lot of ways. But if it can then be presented, my words presented on their sites, and it's kind of softened by the rest of the material and content around it, I think it'll make it a bit more palatable to those individuals, and thus hopefully gain me some sort of traction with that, because that's all I'm trying to do. Is I don't want to be here with my cap out. I want to earn every penny that I need for this life, but it's quite difficult in this industry, because I'm not here to bolster and big up the status quo. I'm here to challenge it. That's my whole ethos. It's my raison d'etre. It's my purpose for fighting in this, is to kind of call out bullshit, and everywhere I'm looking I see bullshit. And yeah, it's a tough position to be in that I've put myself in, but it's something that I find every day is rewarding. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the future holds with these sort of blogs, with these extra lives. I mean, the podcast is growing from strength to strength. We've got some big international guests coming over the next month, and so yeah, it's all going good. So don't worry too much, Chris. Another thing I want to shout out is 420. Obviously Durham's not going to be doing an event for 420. I'm actually going to probably take 420 itself the day to be quite lazy. Probably spend it with Herb, get chonged somewhere, hopefully enjoy what's typically usually a very sunny day in the north. Then with Green Party on the evening. Thank you for liking the stream, Wi-Fi. Then on the evening, I've got the Green Party Drug Policy Reform group. It's not the Drug Policy Reform group, they're just the Drug Policy Working Group, I think is who they are, and they've organised this event for 420 with myself, a couple of, I think there's Yolandi, who's a doctor, Sergil, I think his name is, and I can't remember what his occupation is off the top of my head. Then you've got Nathaniel from Vitality Hemp, and Cleo Lake, who is the PCC Police Crime Commissioner candidate for Avon and Somerset. So I think that's going to be quite an interesting live. I think we've got an hour and a half for us to have quite a few discussions about sort of policy and whatnot, and I've been deliberately chosen to sit on this panel to be a little bit adversarial, to kind of prod the bear a little bit and not let them get too lost in the medical conversation, to kind of try and hopefully represent the culture and community in the existing industry that has been here for decades. The world that they're trying to build is the foundation, built on the foundations of. Evening Wayne, how you keeping? Evening Dawn. Yeah, true. Yeah, I like to think that I'm in a unique position. I can provide unique information and exactly that lived experience, and I suppose the culmination of my knowledge. I should be able to earn a wage off it. As I say, it's quite difficult, because a lot of the mainstream publications, other than say Weed World, I mean, big shout out to Weed World magazine. For the past 2 years, they've just basically let me publish verbatim anything that I've put towards them, which is it's always great to have the support of an international kind of publication like that. But a lot of the other ones, a lot of the narratives I'm pushing are challenging of, say, legalization models or decriminalization, and the monopolization that is occurring in a lot of these regions that are then ending cannabis prohibition but starting some form of cannabis prohibition 2.0, which is over-regulation and restriction of the market for their profit, while they're still criminalizing people who don't fit within their model, rather than decriminalizing everybody and allowing everybody to freely move with this. But that's the nuance in the argument in the language, and that's a conversation that most people don't want to have. They just want to shout legalize it or decriminalize it without having to understand the definitions of these things in legalese, without having to understand the models that prop these up, the actual nuance that would occur if you actually got to decriminalization, or if we got to legalization. It's not just going to be, oh, it's legal, so everything you've ever thought will happen happens, and it just doesn't. I mean, look around the states now. You got New Mexico are going to sign probably this week, if not at the start of next week. They'll sign their legalization and become the 16th state to, in some way, legalize recreational access in America. But each one is different, and each one is more nuanced. And where Colorado and Washington started, so Washington signed the same time as Colorado. Washington still doesn't have home cultivation. Yet now Washington and Colorado are both looking to cap THC potencies. So they're starting to go backwards with their legislation. They may have moved forward with a few bits of social progression, but ultimately the restrictions that are being placed on it through legislation are to benefit industry. So then New York held off, and they've fell down on the end hurdle, I think 2-3 times maybe toward the end, until they got that final legislation. And it came down to the restrictions of 50% of people from disadvantaged backgrounds or people that have been previously criminalized would then get priority of license. Whereas then New Mexico has gone next and gone, no, fuck it, no caps. Do you know what I mean? They shouldn't be. They should be the priority end of, so that each time they'll get it right until they eventually get it right at federal level, or they just won't do it in their eyes. So their version of right won't ever come true to us. It will just be the perfect legal model that still creates restriction, that still creates criminalization, and still means that the people who built the industry will be restricted from it. Whether it's dragging out expungements, or it's some sort of backdoor criminalization, or other ways in which that they can create these hurdles to prevent people from having access to this burgeoning industry. Ben, first Southern country signed today, I believe. South American, or where are we talking, Ben? Hi Nicole, how are you keeping? Thank you, Gary. Always a shameless plug for Weed World. As I've said, if you don't know, guys, you've got to check out Weed World magazine. They've been printing since 1991. Their first issue was actually Drug World, and their editor and owner took so much shit from all goddamn sides. They had to sort of scale it back a bit, and they became Weed World. And until they didn't miss a single publication through all the law changes, through all the legal bullying and everything else, the first time they missed a publication was because of fucking COVID. That's how consistent these guys have been, and the quality of the content, the writers, they have writers from America, from Canada, they have correspondents that produce work from around the world, and I'm just lucky enough to be one of the people that they give that opportunity to. I mean, I'm lucky enough to take up 3 pages of every issue with my ramblings every couple of months. So yeah, of course I'm always going to shamelessly plug Weed World. It kind of is a money grab, but they're going to do that anyway. So that's why I've kind of tried to change my position from where I used to do these lives of kind of like, fuck the system, let's like fight this thing, let's try and tear down the monolith. They've already built it. They've already done. They've set the infrastructure. They've got the plans. They've got the models. They've got their roadmap to their infinite prosperity and profitability. And it doesn't include us. But what we should be doing is, rather than fighting that shit, is building our alternative back road to come together, so that when they eventually get bored of building their highway, we can take over. Because that's what's going to happen once they've extrapolated enough cash from this, and they've set themselves off well enough to own most of the industry. Then they'll give it free rein. Then they'll go, actually, we should probably look at the regulation of cannabis more like alcohol and tobacco than as a drug. That is an inevitability. That'll either come from the UN down, or it'll start to come from countries up. And the first country that does it is going to be a brave motherfucker. But they're also going to be one of the ones to profit most. Because instead of just seeing billionaires being made, they're going to see every citizen lifted from the ground up. They're going to see their entire country cultivate their way out of poverty. And I think that's the thing that they're all missing. They're not quite getting their heads into the right position. Oh, but they actually signed it. I saw, yeah, Virginia was on the Last Week in Weed blog that I just released on Monday, when I was talking about New Mexico putting together their final legislation. I think my guess was Rhode Island, Virginia, and can't remember the third. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Rhode Island is then gonna come after, because that northeast power block that's being created, they're getting smart to it. They're really getting smart to it. States you wouldn't typically associate with this industry are all of a sudden seeing the potential that if they write the legislation in the right way, they can generate billions in taxation. You know, they already have quite large criminal markets in a lot of them anyway. But hopefully they're going to look at seeing the legitimization of that cash, rather than trying to create cash on top of that and then waste cash. Criminalizing a whole part of the community is just ridiculous. Hi Davey T, welcome on Twitch. How you doing, man? still trying to get the whole hang of Twitch. I'm not really a gamer anymore. I don't really think I have the hand-eye coordination these days to play games. I definitely don't have the capability to play games and chat shit. So I'm just going to chat shit instead. Twitch has obviously been quite a friendly space for consumers and people doing live streams and podcasters and people that just want to chat shit to camera for a while. So hopefully this is a platform that I can build. So I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch us from there. I think Paul on Facebook is saying Big Pharma doesn't always work and harms people every year. Surely they should be excited for cannabis. If the only outcome, the only desirable goal is profit, it becomes irrelevant if anybody's harmed to them. Do you know what I mean? And it's that whole argument of we don't actually have a wellness industry, we don't have a health industry, we have a sickness industry. We have an industry that does just enough to perpetuate you on maintenance drugs or on various therapies and exercises and certain things that give you just enough mobility that keep you on that edge. We never have built anything enough to really heal you. We don't have that paradigm because it's not from somebody else to you that you get that. You heal yourself in a lot of ways. And I don't mean this in a spiritual shit, and I'm not saying the doctors are phony. Don't misquote me or misunderstand me. What I'm saying is that a large part of the healing that causes the placebo or the nocebo effect is your fucking brain. So if you want to get better, in conjunction with therapy and in conjunction with sometimes, yes, pharmaceutical drugs or with holistic approach or alternative medicines or whatever it may be, you can rebuild yourself to a point. But then the point is to step away from those aids. It's to put the crutches down and to then walk. Whereas unfortunately, look at the way we deal with diabetes. It becomes a thing of, no, right, we're not going to address your diet. What we're going to do here is here's an insulin and you're going to have to jab yourself X amount of time a day. Whereas we are actually starting to see that through direct intake of FEC or full extract cannabis oil, that people with diabetes are seeing reverses of symptoms because of the way it affects metabolism. But then when you take dietary changes and lifestyle changes into that, you basically don't meet the criteria for the condition anymore. You don't have the condition anymore. The same is true with asthma. The sheer number of people that smoke cannabis that have a diagnosis of asthma that then don't have asthma if they then don't smoke with tobacco. Again, because it's a bronchial dilator, there is certain things within it that help then defend the lungs, that help strengthen them. And so it's almost the opposite in the establishment's mind. They're saying this is a dangerous drug, it causes harm, so it can't do all of these good things. Yet all of these people have this lived evidence. So they're going down this, we need these triple and double placebo-controlled blind studies to be able to prove all of this shit. And they can't, because cannabis is so multifaceted, it is so unique and three-dimensional in this sense. It doesn't fit into their nice little square model. It just can't, and it won't. And so until they can create novel compounds, until they can synthesize and create patented products that then they can test, because it limits the spectrum of easing of one symptom of a condition. They're not trying to reduce and end the condition, which is what most people who've then been accessing FECO to treat various conditions are doing. They're seeing a reversal. They're not managing symptoms, they're trying to treat and cure their illnesses. Whereas what the pharmaceutical and the medical industrial complex is basically trying to do is find out how to make maintenance drugs from cannabis. How to then reduce symptoms of illness while keeping you with the illness, so you'll forever come back to them and give them money for their product to reduce the symptoms of it, rather than you having the capability of not having the condition or disease anymore. Is that any better for the volume? I think I've got to change the output on this as well. I think there's 3 different volumes. I've got to change the computer set volume, the inbox input volume from this, and then the output volume from this thing. I think that's on max, guys. I think that's as loud as I can get, unless I start shouting. Yeah, COPD is another one that, again, it's in the system's sort of mind, mental health conditions as well. Cannabis makes it worse. It just has to make it worse, because they're seeing correlation where there isn't correlation. Because again, they're led by that narrative that says that cannabis has to be bad, it has to be dangerous. We just haven't shown how. Alright guys, I do apologise that it's a bit quiet. I don't know how to actually turn it up anymore, because otherwise you're going to max out on this thing and it's just going to be sending it out in the red. Is that alright? Ooh, we're touching the red. Seems good. There you go. You seem happy with that. Sweet. Sweet, sweet, sweet. It's high now, it's fine. Just like me. Just like me. So yeah, what I'll be looking to do with these live streams, break them up in about 15-minute sections, try and cut them into 4:15s. So the back 15 will typically be Q&A. So as I've said, if you've got anything, any daft questions, doesn't have to be cannabis related at all, just for me to chat shit with y'all. Giggity. Ooh, shout out to the man with the weed. I'm enjoying this. This is tasty. You know who you are, sir. Oof. So yeah, we've covered basically most of the things on my list. It's been a bit low, windy rambles. I suppose one of the things I haven't really shouted out about a lot is the podcast. I don't know how many people who are viewing this that are just seeing this as a live that are not even aware that I do a weekly podcast now called the Simpa Life podcast. You can find it at Spotify, Apple, Google, Anchor, basically anywhere you get podcasts. We also have it available on thesimpalife.com. We have the video version on YouTube and Facebook, and I've finally started uploading them to the WeedTube as well. So I'm going to have an extra little bank of episodes there in case YouTube ever decides that it doesn't like me and wants to delete my account, which is quite possible these days, to be honest with you. I see it happening more and more. I hope we're not heading towards another that summer apocalypse we had where all of the social media platforms just went on an absolute mission and just erased so many massive accounts. But they'll have seen that in their traffic, they'll have seen the drop in the numbers of people, and it led to the invention of things like the WeedTube. So kind of works in swings and roundabouts, doesn't it? Yeah, futures. This is something that's I've been trying to reach out. I've got a psychiatrist friend of mine he's very busy doing certain things. Ooh, that was loud. Doing certain things and certain trials. So it's been hard to get him as a guest, but it's something that I've desperately wanting to discuss on the podcast. But I want to discuss with somebody who has a standing within that field, because it's something that I personally struggle with back and forth. Because yeah, I have been through the rigor with this system since I was a child. I've had various diagnoses applied to me over the years for various mental health conditions, and it's difficult because of the way that it's applied. What I have learned about, say, Freudian psychiatry versus sort of Jungian ideas, and what became so predominant in modern psychiatry, and the fallibility of the individuals who created the concepts that then became the ideas that were the cornerstone of this, and then we've cobbled together everything since. Trying to get trying to rationalize the irrational nature of culture, whether it be the demonization and criminality of homosexuality, or the vilification of certain genders, groups, races, ethnicities, etc., and trying to actually legitimize that through the creation of certain conditions. I'm thinking of hysteria off the top of my head right there. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's dangerous, but it can, to some, hold comfort. It then becomes, as we said, it's maintenance, rather than seeking the cure, as it were, rather than truly facing that inner demon, facing that trauma, and growing from it. Yeah, it's easier to just take the pill. It's easier to just, okay, I'll do the thing, and you accept the narrative, and you start to tell yourself these stories, and you lessen your experience of life to fit in with this narrative that you've been told, because it's easier for your ego or your consciousness to attach itself to this than do the hard work of sitting and going, no, why am I like this? What am I thinking? What am I doing? How I look after myself affecting me? You know, do I provide enough self-love? Do I provide enough self-care? Do I eat enough nutrition? Do I sleep well enough? You know, do I provide positive relationships in my life? Do I do all of these things that are necessary to facilitates positive mental health. And if you don't, then of course you're going to end up feeling depressed or anxious or having maladaptive behavioral patterns that are temporary to the event. But it's the same as you're on fire because your house is on fire. You don't then go outside, put yourself out, and then go back into the flames and not expect to get burnt again. And I think the same is true with mental health. We're not at that point yet, and it's something that I've mentioned previously, is that we're not going to really. I think it was on Canaman TV. I did a recording for Canaman TV's first live last night, and we were talking about and I was saying the mysterious and the mystical, that until we can get a handle on that kind of experience, we're not really going to get very far in understanding life. And the same is true with the medical model. So you look at these clinics that are being set up that are going to provide MDMA and LSD, DMT, ketamine to treat things like alcoholism, obsessive compulsive disorder, etc. They're not dealing with the mysterious. They're not dealing with the profound. They're not dealing with that, the uniqueness of the experience. It feels like they're trying to standardize it, and I think that that's something that we're going to see more and more as psychiatry adapts to utilizing these compounds. And as I've said many times before on the podcast, psychiatry is leading the way in air quotes medical cannabis's development, because they suddenly were looking at life in one way, and then they've got all these case studies where suddenly they flip it around and they go, cannabis wasn't causing this. All of these people were utilizing cannabis to help deal with the symptoms, ailments of, etc. But rather than it being conditions, I think we need to move beyond that to go, actually, if you're impoverished and you can't eat and you're not providing enough nutrition to your body, you're not the best you can be. You're not feeling your best anyway. So then to be able to give someone a shit diagnosis of depression when actually you're just economically deprived, I think is a nice easy plaster for the establishment to put on it. Whereas I think that then this integration of psychedelics and of cannabis into this narrative gives us the opportunity to have a conversation beyond that, to empower the individual to step beyond their diagnosis and beyond victim identity, to then go, no, I am oppressed and I am fucking a victim of something, but it's the state, it's the establishment and the status quo. You know what I mean? It's classism is real. Economic depravity is real. There's some of the regions around the north, when you compare to some of the regions in the south of this country, and then you look at the kind of the socioeconomic, or just the social alone, the social problems of individuals are far different. The vast majority of the ones up here could be solved with food. Fucking food. You know, most problems can be solved with down south? Fucking more responsibility, paying more taxes, being more engaged with the system, feeling less just alienated from it and isolated because of a protectionist attitude towards materialism and towards money. And I think that division between us all is ever growing, and things like unfortunately the traditional mental health paradigm perpetuates that massively, because it gives an excuse to it. Oh, you've got anxiety. No, you're anxious because you don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. You've got no financial security through employment. You've got no home security. You've got no guarantee of hours because you're on a 0-hour contract. You know what I mean? You have no security. You have nothing, no surety, no place to be safe. And once you have to then live in that for a sustained period of time, and I said again, when you can't sustain decent nutrition, you can't then sleep, you can't look after yourself, of course you're going to end up in a shit position. So you shouldn't then have to end up with a doctor, and a doctor go, here you go, we're going to give you a drug and this will make you forget your fucking problems. Why is the system not addressing the fucking problems? There are millions more than there were at the start of COVID that are now slid into poverty. The middle class are getting ever more squeezed and becoming ever more working poor. And that needs fucking addressing. We can't just use fucking pseudoscience to address it. We can't just use bullshit. We can't allow them to co-opt cannabis and call it medical and prescribe it and do all the other crap they're going to do to it. We can't allow them to then do the same with entheogenic compounds. We know they're fucking going to anyway. But there has to be a cultural defense. There has to be some form of community around that protects the history. Because again, they only know that they could use, say, ketamine for depression, or they can use, say, LSD for alcoholism, because of the lived experience of people that have done this before them. It's not that they're suddenly new and just pulling things out of their arse and going, let's put this and this together and see what happens. They've taken the information, they've taken the knowledge from the culture and from the community of people that are still criminalized and still oppressed for trying to treat and help each other, for trying to show sympathy and compassion to their fellow man. Yet these multinational corporations are coming in already. They're floating companies on stock exchanges, betting on the future of being able to use psilocybin as the next big antidepressant. It's fucking bullshit. Yet you go out and you try and pick mushrooms when it's the right fucking time of this year and see what fucking happens to you. It's ridiculous. Sorry, I hope that gives some sort of insight into that futures. They will indeed, Wayne. The psychedelics will change it, but it's how it's changed, because I'm hoping this is just unfounded. This might just be a hot take and just my own. It's my own opinion. So don't take it or leave it. Basically, is what I'm saying. But you think of what someone like Charles Manson was able to do with LSD, and how he was able to take these malleable individuals and mold them into being so compliant and so evangelicalist about his worldview. They were so loyalist. He created a cult, and I just worry that these substances, if created into a medicinalized or pharmaceuticalized sort of paradigm, that they could then be used to just further indoctrinate people. Yeah, you may have that somewhat mystical experience and the kind of positive hangover of the psychedelics, which could then give you intermittent release from depression or from whatever it is that you're feeling. But you've then not had in that moment the opportunity to explore, maybe I hate my job, maybe I want to move, maybe I want to divorce my wife, maybe I hate my kids, or whatever else it is. Maybe you need that space to have that realization. And I think, having not gone through it, obviously I can't speak of the experience, but it feels from what I've read of the literature that it is quite a guided thing. It's a very controlled thing, and I think that to me means the outcome is controlled. Whereas to me, the point of the psychedelic experience is to experience the profound, is to go to the mysterious, and then from that, integrate it into your life. Take the time to understand that experience. If it was a so-called bad trip or as a positive experience or whatever, there is something to be learned from that. You have made manifest the internal world. You have experienced that in some small way, and that's profound, and that means something. And I think the knowledge that can come from that is deeply meaningful to each individual. And I think that the over medicalization, the over over hygienization of the whole situation, I think negates the opportunity for that truly mysterious experience, because I think that's uncontrollable, and the establishment wouldn't want you to have an uncontrollable experience, because that could lead to all kinds of profundities. You know, people like Bill Gates spoke of taking LSD in college as one of the most meaningful experiences of his life. You look at people who worked with on the CIA trials, so they did this for 23, 24 years. They basically worked in partnership, putting Sandoz LSD to anybody that wanted it to experiment with it, because they wanted the data. They wanted the opportunity to be able to use this as a truth serum, as a way to manipulate and to pacify entire populations. But that's probably just my somewhat paranoid ramblings on it, to be honest with you. It's going to happen anyway. As I say, you can see it within the literature. You can, as in what they're producing at the medical level, what they're now starting to put out compared to what was there 10 years ago. It's interesting that it's more of a renaissance, because if you look at what the research that was done from the 50s, 60s, etc. I mean, ecstasy was originally the love drug in Californian research, and that was given to married couples as a way to, as a last kind of shot for them to get bonding and connection. The mushroom trials that were done in places like John Hopkins and etc., that stuff continued on for a very long fucking time. So this is just kind of the end point of all of that. And I think it's every time that these drugs or these compounds have leaked out into culture, and you see things like the 60s, you know what I mean, you then see things like with the 80s and heroin, etc., and various of the cocaine. You look at the just deregulation goes hand in hand with the prevalence of cocaine. If you look at that, greed is good, so the Gordon Gekko image, and you think of the prevalence of cocaine, the substances affect culture is basically what I'm saying. So I think with them being able to medicinalize them, is it a way to control their impact on culture through the way that they impact the individual, so that if you want to try ketamine, you want to try LSD, you want to try DMT, they become your first point of call. So when you have that mysterious experience, you have it within the confines of their establishment. Do you know what I mean? But again, I could just be me being paranoid about it, but that would be my fear for it. Whenever I have a high-end entheogenic experience, I definitely prefer to be with a fire and in the woods, dark and alone, in nature, just back to basics, usually barefoot, with good coffee supplies, a bit of food and whatever else, and just have that experience and just let whatever comes come, and then spend that time to integrate it back into my psyche as to what it is that I've just experienced. And I worry that the medicinalization of this doesn't then create the space for that. But I seriously hope to be proved wrong. Yeah, it's before even Timothy Leary futures. If you look at what's his name, Bill Wilson. Bill Wilson was one of the co-founders of Alcoholics, not Alcoholics. Yeah, 12 Steps, the 12 Steps program that came through Alcoholics Anonymous, and he had a profound experience because he did one of the LSD trials through one of the universities in America for intractable depression, and he had such a profound experience with LSD, and they wanted to use that as part of with the 12 steps. They wanted to integrate that in, but the co-founders and the other they were quite sort of religious zealots in some way, sort of talked the narrative around and altered that, and it just kind of got lost in translation and never came about. So the fact that that's now coming to fruition some 50, 60 odd years later, I think is quite poetic in a lot of ways, isn't it? But it's interesting because most dependencies of substances are down to traumas or are down to something that is unresolved or unaddressed within us as individuals. And it is the profundity of things like, say, an ayahuasca experience or a high-dose LSD experience that allows you to separate enough from yourself that you can, without judgment, without emotion, without fear, view your life, view who you are, and have that conversation with yourself. It comes in the weirdest of ways, it comes in the most mysterious of guises, but it allows, or from my experience and from others that I've sort of spoken to that have had this sort of similar experience, is that, yeah, it's like you fracture yourself and you can look at the parts and you can address, you can move a few things, and then when the experience ends, you have that opportunity to walk forward with those new pieces in that new configuration. You still have to continue to do work after the fact, otherwise you'll find yourself 3, 4, 5 months down the line back in that burning house, as it were. You'll find yourself on fire again. So it's not just about getting this one experience and boom, everything's going to be better. You then have to do the work daily. You have to continue this. I was talking to somebody recently about the idea of depression running like a channel, like a groove through the brain, and it just, the more depressed you are and the more you think these shit thoughts and the less you challenge it, the deeper that groove becomes. So then when the water of thoughts, as it were, flow over the brain, they flow into the deepest canyon. So unless you do that work daily to challenge and create, those are the neural pathways, until you can use substances that create neurogenesis so that you can wire new neurons together and create new thought processes around certain subjects. But you can also do this through day-to-day life, through conscious intent, through thinking. So you can do the work, and it should be done in conjunction with and with the integration of these substances. You can't just expect to have a huge experience, go off your nut somewhere, and then your life's going to be better for it. You have to have that integration, and you have to have that fortitude, frankly, to sit with yourself and to go through that and to not run away from it, to not get scared and to be challenged by it. I mean, there is something positive to be found in every experience, no matter how bad it seems. Yeah, I agree. We're already sort of seeing that by the nature of what they're saying. So they're saying LSD for alcoholism, etc. So they're trying to already narrow it down. So rather than going, actually, so alcoholism is the symptom of the issue. That's how they're manifesting this. What's wrong in your life? How was your childhood? How are your connections with your family now? Have you ever had any adverse experiences? You know what I mean? If we start to then look at those kind of things, rather than trying to pull them together to create an end diagnosis, which is what they do, they miss the point of it. It's, no, go and address those things, figure them out, actually have that time in a safe space for that individual to look at that vulnerability and to address it. And most often it's, I think of the image of, it's a horrible series of images, and it shows how they used to train sort of elephants in zoos and stuff. And basically they would beat the living shit out of them when they were small, so that by the time they got large, they didn't notice the disparity. That elephant still felt that small. there was still a tiny little baby elephant. So every time that the whip or the arm went up or anything, the fear went in, and because they'd been programmed into it effectively. And the same is then true of people, but the difference is with our consciousness, we can fucking recognize that we're not small anymore. But to do that, you need these spaces, you need these opportunities to have these revelatory realizations, these sudden epiphanies, these sudden Satori-like, just where everything just drops, and all of a sudden it's right. Everything makes fucking sense, and all of a sudden everything that's been you up to that point isn't you anymore, and you step into this new you. We're supposed to have that revelatory renewal, rebirthing experience virtually every fucking day. The Buddha spoke of that you die each day and you are born again each morning. Like the physical nature of you disappears. You go to sleep into the ether, and then you wake back into manifest into your body. And it's what you do that day and how you choose to use it, which matters. And I think that's the thing that we've got lost of. We get stuck in the narrative. I'm a depressed person, so therefore I'm going to be depressed. I'm an anxious person, so therefore I'm going to be anxious. I'm a borderline, so therefore I'm going to be borderliney. Sorry, terrible way to describe it. But do you know what I mean? So we start to then identify with that narrative, and then to a point then it perpetuates. And then you self-police yourself into this position, and the establishment, in much the same way that the legal system in the UK is all a con, because your legal representatives to you, if you were to try and challenge the law, have actually sworn oath to the bar. So they're there to do right by the system, not by you, but they're there to facilitate you through the system. The same is then true of a lot of the medical paradigm. And it's scary, because the interactions I've already had with the medical establishment means they can frankly disappear me. I could be sectioned on the history of previous diagnoses that don't fit anywhere near true to who I am as an individual today. But because of the historic nature of that, they could then still potentially to use that. And I think that is a dangerous control tool that is getting ever worse, as we're seeing under COVID, because of the COVID regulations of the COVID Act 2020, they extended this power to basically go if you were thought to be infectious and you wouldn't remove yourself from a situation. There was a clause that was put within that you could then be sectioned through the same mechanism, and it gave a legal precedent to it. It allowed that to be legal for kidnapping, effectively. So yeah, I'm always suspicious of any systems. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Doing the work does require resources. It's very easy for you if you're then depressed. You're like, oh, somebody says you need to change your lifestyle. You need to do this. If you can then go get a lifestyle coach. You get a yoga teacher comes over every day. You have enough to be able to drink all the wheatgrass, to eat all of the truly ridiculously and overinflated health foods, and to engage with that way. Yeah, it's easy if you've then got the resource to do that. And unfortunately, because then people are willing to pay for that, a lot of the wellness industry gravitates towards that. Because again, it's almost like they just see if you're poor, you're expected to be depressed, you're expected to be anxious, you're expected to just, because if you had money, you wouldn't be. That's almost the mentality of it. If you did, you'd have the money to be able to resolve that issue, and that's the fucking joke of it. So as they force more and more people into economic hardship, they're just forcing more and more people into poor mental health, and then they're offering no lifeline. I mean, it seems to be conservative ideology that basically your mental health is your fucking problem. It's an incredibly dangerous a level of control they have over us. Yes, I bet a lot of people feel like that when Future's saying that. I feel like a baby elephant whenever the alarm goes off in the morning. Just kidding. But yeah, anything that kind of regiments us into that, we've lost what it is to be human, and then they wonder why we have such existential crisis. They vilify our want to alter our consciousness. They demonize our sexual preferences. They break up our social spheres and stop us from interacting with people in the way that we want. They prevent us from being human, and then they wonder why we have these problems. And we ourselves are still lost in it, of wondering why. And it's because we're not free to express ourselves. We're not free to exist. We're not free to associate with whoever we want and to explore the insanely ridiculous nature of our fucking reality. Because I don't know about you, I look around most fucking days and I'm overwhelmed that any of this is here. It makes no sense, and yet nobody talks about it. We just continue to just wander through life. I'm gonna go get a Starbucks. I'm gonna go do my fucking 9 to 5. I'm gonna go do blah 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 blah. But we're here. This shit is here. It's all fucking here. This has got to mean more to this. And for me, that's the existentialness, the dread that I lose. That's what makes me depressed and makes me hopeless, is that I feel we're missing it. That there is something so magical and so fucking profound and wonderful going on right now by just the nature of existence. And we're just stuck. We're all just stuck in a massive tapestry, a huge fucking game of risk that somebody else has set up. And I think that is what leads most people to this sense of hopelessness, this ever-looming depressive cycle that peaks and flows, and most of us are happy when we can find a good half an hour escapism, something that we just lose ourselves, and then you look up from it and, oh yeah, life sucks. But it doesn't. But that's the way a lot of us feel, because it's so hard to do any of the things that make us feel better. And the main thing that makes us feel better is each other. And we haven't had that for a fucking year. There hasn't been anything. We've been locked into our little cages, and we've been bullied, berated, and gaslit into believing whatever the fuck. And yeah, it's backwards. It is beyond backwards. And I think that the best thing that we can do is create those safe spaces for each other, is go back to free parties, festivals, gatherings, associations. Do you know what I mean? We need everything from the fucking 5 or 6 people on a picnic bench at the back of a pub setting the worlds to right, all the way up to students or community people engaging to do direct action. We need to get back to doing real shit for each other. Get rid of the apathy, get rid of the lethargy, and recognize that all we have is now, and it's valuable, and it's ever being squandered by us for doing nothing. I'm the first to hold my hand up, and I'm massively to blame for that, because it's over-fucking-whelming. It's all fucking overwhelming. But by having these kind of conversations, these kind of interactions, and engaging with the like-minded people around you, it becomes a bit easier. And it's not as scary, and it's not as hopeless. It's still frustrating. It's still angering. It's still perplexing and confusing and ever frustrating. But it becomes more worth it, because you get a glimmer of the future. You get these opportunities to look into a potential reality, a reality that's worth having, man. Do you know what I mean? It's worth fighting for. It's worth risking shit for. It's worth staying alive for. And I think too many of us have lost that. We've become hopeless and detached, and we'll just take whatever's being spoon-fed via Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or whatever your fucking stream service of choice may be, and we just take it, and we argue about characters and nuance and cultural bullshit and left versus right, and we miss life in the middle of it. We just miss it. Yeah, Claudia, they made us this way, but they made the system this way. We can escape it. Weed can escape it. Yeah, so there's a few people going to be trying this. So I think Too Loud are doing an event in sort of April. But in terms of sort of DCC, no, we've put out a little teaser for July 18th, so do keep the date. But we're looking to go when we can go for a larger event. I am more than happy to take on my local constabulary under normal circumstance, because frankly I feel I know enough of the law to be able to defend myself and to work within the nuance of language to facilitate us getting away with these events as we have done previously. But with COVID regulations and the heavy-handed nature by which the police come in, we add the optics of cannabis to that. Local press, for all they've ignored us for all of these years, guarantee you them and national press will make a scene of it. So it's something that we're quite mindful of at the minute, and just trying to just trying to organize the best event possible that is actually what people want. And what people seem to want is to just get together. They want that opportunity in a safe space to just congregate and socialize, catch up and shoot the shit, because they have not had the opportunity. Shoot the shit, not kick the shit. There you go. I knew I'd figure this one out eventually. If anybody didn't clock that at the start of the show, I did say kick the shit instead of shoot the shit. But yeah, that's what people want, man. They want that safe space. They want that opportunity to congregate and to feel safe and to glimmer that brighter future, man. So hopefully DCCC will be able to deliver this in over the summer. Then, like I said, there's going to be quite a lot of other events kicking off around the UK. Dependent on how successful this is with us in July, we would potentially look at doing further events over the back end of the summer into the early autumn. But it's so hard to suggest anything or to make any concrete plans because there is no certainty. There is just no fucking certainty at the minute. But yeah, we're making little checkpoints. I think from next week we're allowed out, as in like non-essential shops are open. I think you're allowed to then go to pub, beer gardens, etc. So it's gonna be quite interesting, and I'm really excited, to be honest with you. I know it's yay capitalism. I'm happy for everyone to go spend whatever, but I love seeing people happy. I don't kind of care what makes them happy. I know if it's the most frivolous, ignorant bullshit of a thing. I just love sitting and quietly watching people enjoying themselves. It just makes me so fucking happy. And the past year or so, whenever I'm out, people are just not. They've just been getting by and skirting. But it's going to be like perpetually living at an airport for the next few weeks, folks, because every time you see somebody, you're not going to have seen them in so long, and everyone's still going to be like, oh, we're social distance. No, people are going to be hugging, people are going to be kissing, people are going to be just so overwhelmed to be in each other's presence that, yeah, they're going to say fuck those rules. And if this vaccine is worth anything, if these protocols and all the effort that has been put into place, then there shouldn't be an issue, and we should be allowed to grow free from this going forward. So fingers crossed we'll get that. Right, I've waffled on slightly longer than I wanted to because I didn't want to keep these down to an hour, but it did take me about 10 minutes to get started. So if you have actually watched this instead of live and you are watching this back and you've made it this far, thank you for getting through that shit 10 minutes of me trying to figure this out. Please do like, share, follow, whatever the various thing is on the platform you're viewing this. Check out simpalife.com for blogs and the podcast. I'll be announcing on all social media platforms at The Simpa Life the various new blog projects that I'll be working on over the coming weeks. We'll be releasing guest announcements as well because we've got a couple of very interesting guests that I want to get out early because I want to get some public questions on them. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this, folks. Any feedback, always appreciated. Yeah, hope to see you back here live next Thursday. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Go have fun. Go be nice to each other. Go chill the fuck out. All right.